At 2:03 a.m., her phone buzzed with a voicemail notification, even though it never rang. Lena blinked the sleep from her eyes and saw the caller ID say, "Tomorrow, 2:03 a.m." The label wasn't a contact, not a scam tag, not anything the phone OS should display. It pulsed with an anxious glow, as if the screen itself had a heartbeat. She put the phone to her ear and pressed play. Static rolled first, soft as seashell surf. Then her own voice, hoarse and whisper-thin. "Wake up, don't touch the window." Something tapped the glass by her bed exactly when the recording said the word window, an obedient, polite knock from the outside of her 8th-floor apartment. She froze and stared at her reflection in the pane. It stared back a beat late. The message ended with the dry click of a tongue, like whoever was speaking had just realized she'd been overheard. Another notification arrived. Tomorrow, 2:04 a.m. She played it. It was shorter. "It heard me. Keep the lights off." Lena slid out of bed, toeing the floor for the cool rectangle of her power strip. Click. Darkness poured into the room. The city outside retreated into red pinpricks and a sodium fog. Her eyes learned the shapes again: dresser, door, the crooked plant she should have watered. The third voicemail came at 2:05, shorter still. "Closet, breathe quiet." The closet always stuck at the hinge, a petty domestic annoyance. Tonight it opened silently, as if the wood were pleased to be useful. She stepped in among coats that smelled of last winter and waited while the room held its breath with her. On the 4th minute, her future self didn't speak at all. The message carried only the faint scrape of something moving against glass. Not a tap. A slow, testing drag, like bone thinking about becoming a finger. She slid the closet door an inch wider and listened to the building as if it were trying to apologize. Pipes ticking themselves calm, a neighbor's aquarium filter murmuring like a distant freeway, the radiator releasing a tired cough. A 5th alert appeared, tomorrow, 2:06 a.m., and lasted only a heartbeat, a 1-second burst that captured a tiny, involuntary noise she recognized too well, her own startled laugh, the one that came out when terror tried to pretend it was a joke. She deleted none of them, she renamed nothing, she backed up nothing. At 2:11, the screen finally went blank. She stayed in the closet until the streaks of streetlight softened into a gray that the brain insists is morning. By morning, the messages vanished from her inbox. No icons, no carrier logs, only a knot in her stomach and a bruise on her palm from clenching the phone too hard in the dark. She tried to work. The day refused to become ordinary. Every reflective surface lagged by a fraction, like reality buffering. In the office bathroom, the mirror coughed up mist without running water, and across it someone had traced a circle and a diagonal slash, the universal sign for do not, as if the glass itself had attended a safety seminar. She told herself she'd imagined it, a stress tick with props. Then her phone buzzed again at 1:57 a.m. the following night. Tomorrow, 1:57 a.m. It shouldn't have been possible yet. Tomorrow's 1:57 hadn't happened. The recording was longer this time, careful, almost tender. "I figured out the rule," her own voice said. "It only reaches while something is on its way to happening. The messages lengthen the farther we are from the tap. If you hear me for more than a minute, you're safe for now. If I'm just a breath, it's standing at the glass." "So what do I do?" Lena whispered to the empty apartment. The radiator answered with a groan like a door considering a career change. The message continued. "You'll want to look. Don't. It learns the outline of attention. It copies better when watched." The recording paused. In the gap, she heard distant traffic and the fragile bell of a bottle rolling somewhere on the street. Her future self came back, sounding closer to the microphone, as if leaning toward it from just behind Lena's current shoulder. "I think there's a door it can't follow through," the voice said. "Not a literal one, more like the place where the apartment forgets to be your apartment." "The closet," Lena said, remembering the silent hinge. A soft, relieved exhale came through the speaker. "Yes, for now." She taped a sticky note to the window that said, "Do not," then peeled it off, worried that letters were windows too. On the subway home, she watched her reflection jitter on the blacked-out tunnel panels, and saw that when she looked away, The copy of her kept watching for half a beat. Back in her kitchen, she dragged a chair to the window and sat like a night watchman who had never met a night. She tried to call her mother, then imagined having to explain time to someone who loved her and hung up before the first ring. She tested the theory like a scientist who hadn't slept in days. At 11 p.m., she turned every mirror to the wall and set her phone on Do Not Disturb, with exceptions for voicemails that should not exist. At 1:10 a.m., a new message arrived from Tomorrow 1:10 a.m., almost a full minute long. She played it while standing in the dark kitchen with her hand on the cabinet where mugs went to retire. Future Lena sounded brisk, the way she did on Good Mornings. "You'll think you can reason with it," the voice said. "You can't, you can only choreograph it. The first knock at 2:03 will be polite. The second at 2:04 will be annoyed. The third is not a knock, it's it learning the motion of entering." "Entering what?" Lena asked, and then wished she hadn't. "Your outline," the voice said simply. Silence breathed between the words. In the quiet, Lena felt the apartment map itself around her, the hairline crack by the radiator, the hard little circle where a previous tenant had hung a clock, the secret warmth where morning light pooled on weekends. She sensed, with an animal clarity she didn't like, a thin membrane to reality that could be pressed by something patient. The message's last 30 seconds were instructions. Move the bed away from the window. Stack the books to make the closet door stop at 90 degrees. When it drags the glass, put your hand against the floorboards. If you feel the vibration, it's still outside. If the wood is calm, it's already memorizing the room from the inside, and you need to be smaller than your outline. "How do I do that?" she whispered. "Don't breathe like yourself," the voice said. "Pretend to be tomorrow." She made a list headed rules and underlined it twice, then realized underlining looked like rails and she didn't want to build anything for it to travel on. She changed the heading to suggestions, which felt like hubris wrapped in politeness. To keep her nerves honest, she walked the apartment barefoot, memorizing each board's temperature, the texture of each rug, the tiny change in air where the bathroom door warped in humidity. When the refrigerator cycled off, the silence felt not empty but crowded, like a theater right before the curtain lifts. At 2:02 a.m., the night stitched itself into the scene between minutes. Lena stood with her back to the closet, books wedged as instructed. The phone lay on the rug, speaker up, waiting to ferry a voice that hadn't yet been said. The elevator down the hall groaned. Somewhere a neighbor laughed through headphones. The city distant snarled. Then the tap came, a precise metronome tick against the window that made her molars hum. Tomorrow 2:03 a.m. arrived. "Wake up, don't touch the window," she heard herself say, perfectly matching the memory of last night. She stared fixedly at the corner where two walls met, like people who hadn't decided whether to hug. The second message instructed the lights off. She had already done it. At 2:05 the drag began, not a line but a curve, as if whatever studied her liked to write in cursive. The glass sang faintly with the friction. Lena slid one palm to the floorboards. They trembled. Outside. Good. She counted breaths in odd numbers, because even felt like commitment. The closet seemed to grow deeper behind her. She had the unhelpful thought that all closets were doorways to the day after you wore what hangs in them. Tomorrow 2:06 a.m. came in 7 clipped words. Don't let it hear you're counting. She swallowed the numbers and let time be a faceless crowd. The drag stopped. A new sound crept in through the frame. A slow, elasticy popping, like a suction cup considering retirement. The wood under her hand went still. It was inside the room. She folded herself smaller, shoulders toward ribs, chin toward sternum, the opposite of the posture you use when you're volunteering for a photograph. The dark near the window had thickness now, a syrup quality, as if it preferred that things move slowly through it. Her phone buzzed again, but there was no message. The screen, dim as a sleeping lake, showed her camera app open to a live view of the room, from a perspective 3 inches to her left. In that view, a black shape stood by the glass, head tilted with the curiosity of a deer. No eyes, only the idea of where eyes might be placed if the designer had remembered. Oh. It stepped without stepping. One frame closer, another. The thing behaved like a rumor, gathering detail from attention. Where she didn't look, it was fog. Where she accidentally glanced, it acquired edges. A suggestion of collarbone, the plane of a cheek, the set of a mouth learning the word welcome. Her voicemail pinged, tomorrow 2:07 a.m., not audio this time but a transcription, as if the message had bled through a different channel. Open the closet, it read. Stand inside the threshold, keep the door at 90 degrees. It hates right angles because they don't match how it rounds you. Lena nudged the door with her calf, letting the books catch. The closet breathed cold. On the screen, the black shape cocked its head farther, fascinated by the closet's geometry. It took a step toward her, not in the room, but in the camera's idea of the room. The view shivered. For a single guilty second she looked directly, and the thing's surface tightened, resolving into something almost human. Almost her. Her future voice arrived as a final whisper. If it looks exactly like you, it will answer your phone tomorrow and you won't get any more warnings. Then what? Lena asked, a child asking a precipice to be a staircase. Then you'll be the one outside, the voice said, and the line went dead. The not quite her tilted its head toward the vibrating phone as if considering introductions. Lena stepped backward into the closet until the threshold gripped her shins. She held the door at the instructed angle. The thing flowed forward like heat shimmer and pressed against the boundary. For an instant, reality wavered, the kind of wiggle glass does above a candle, and the room forgot which side had the rest of the air. Something in the hinge groaned, delighted and appalled. The black shape extended an arm that wasn't, reaching to where her outline should be. It touched the right angle and peeled away with a noise like wet paper refusing to be a wing. The phone screen went blank. A new notification appeared, the final one she would receive. Yesterday, 2:08 a.m. She hit play. Her own voice, alive and breathy, said from safely behind the door, "You did it. Keep the angle. Tomorrow, tell me everything." Lena stood in the practiced geometry until dawn, while something on the other side of the closet learned how to pace without feet and how to be patient without a clock. When morning finally added edges to the room, she eased the door shut, counted to a number she refused to memorize, and placed her phone face down so that the world had one less reflection to practice in. That night at 1:57, her phone buzzed. The caller ID said, "Tomorrow 1:57 a.m." The message was blessedly long. She poured coffee, pressed record, and began teaching herself how to be tomorrow before tomorrow arrived.